Howdy, howdy, everyone. Welcome to the I Read It for the Plot podcast. I hope everyone is having a safe and fun week or will have one upcoming. If you just need a place to sit back and relax after a long day, this is a space for you. And if you could like, comment on, save, or share this podcast, hit that little bell to get notifications for new episodes. It would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions or recommendations, please feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram or send us an email at ireaditfortheplotcast@gmail.com. Got some exciting news. So each new chapter for this podcast is going to come with a weekly challenge for you, fellow readers. Maybe a reading, writing, or creativity challenge. You may even add a book-themed scavenger hunt, such as hunting down all of the local bookshops in your area or selecting a book from your shelf, one from each genre. You could promote or you can share merchandise or trinkets that you yourself have made or have collected over the years. And you can share it all on your own media with hashtag I Read It for the Plot podcast or on our I Read It for the Plot Discord on our new weekly challenge channel. Our content is going to continue to explore different genres, tropes, involve fellow content creators and authors alike. We're going to grow as we go and have fun as we flow. That being said, grab a cup, grab a blanket. Let's talk book. Chapter 14, A Pinch of Salt and a Dash of Spice with Liz Shipton. Today, fellow readers, we are going to dive into the realm of dystopian romantasy. If you were ever a fan of series like The Hunger Games or Divergent as a young adult, this chapter will captivate you. And with me here today is a very special guest, author of Salt, a spicy dystopian romantasy, and its book 2, Sand, Hell's Angel investigator, short, spicy billionaire romance with a motorcycle twist, a tale of mischief and fuckery. I love this freaking title so much. It's a short, spicy romantasy with a bodyguard twist. Scourge and Speed, which is young adult apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic prequels. Have Yourself a Merry Little Apocalypse. Short, spicy, small-town romance with an apocalyptic twist. Roses Are Red, Violence is Blue. I love that so much. Short, spicy, fae romance with a mafia twist. Red, White, and Little Blue Men from Mars. Short, spicy, alien romance. Oh, if you know her as the content creator who parodies the ways that authors write, if you don't, go follow her right now because she is hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow readers, may I present, and I apologize for any background noise for neighbors mowing the lawns outside, Liz Shipton.
Hey.
Hi, Liz. Again,
Hi.
I apologize for the background noise. It's Saturday.
It's okay. I think I have a little too. I have a fan running here because it's very hot where I am. So apologies from my end as well.
Yeah, we've been getting triple degree weather here in California for the past 3 weeks.
Wait, where in California are you?
Central California. Like, my area is literally the pit stop between San Francisco and Yosemite.
Oh, okay. So I'm actually from Santa Cruz originally. That's where I left from on my journey. So yeah, I'm a California. I'm actually not a California native, but I lived in California for a long time. Yeah, right on. That's cool.
Love that. All right, for our audience members, you write dystopian, I always say it wrong, dystopian romantasy. So how did you get into that as a writer or even as a reader?
So when I came to writing, which was about probably almost 3 years ago at this point, what I remembered really loving as a kid, the books I remembered, being my favorites, were like Hunger Games, Divergent, and then, like older dystopian novels like Fahrenheit 451 and, Animal Farm and stuff like that. Like, I really love a good sort of let's bring down the government dystopian story. And it's a great way, I think, for me to sort of like vent some of my frustrations with the world and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But at the same time, I wanted it to be sort of like fun and snarky and, you know, the way that a romantasy or whatever is, and have the characters be doing their banter and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was kind of a combination of those two things.
Love that. And so how do you incorporate that into your writing? Like, when did you first start writing this particular genre?
So, I started writing actually about 3 years ago at the same time that I don't know if you know this or if people necessarily know this, but I live on a sailboat with my boyfriend and my dog, and we have been sailing through the Americas basically for the last about 3 years. And I started writing around the same time that we left on this trip because I just sort of saw it as an opportunity to do this thing that I had wanted to do for a very long time. And as a way to kind of incorporate the adventures that I was having in real life into the writing. So Salt and the whole dystopian series that I've written is very much based on like my real sailing adventures. It all happens in this dystopian water world, in like a near future. It's actually set. It starts in California, actually, in a place that's kind of based on Santa Cruz, where I'm from. And these two young people and their dog and a dog kind of end up having to sail across this dystopian water world together, and along the way they fall in love and they bring down the government and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was all kind of a big amalgamation of just sort of everything coming together and happening at the same time. If that makes sense.
Did you ever watch dystopian movies like Waterworld with it was like Kevin Costner?
Yeah, you know what's so funny is like I mean I watched that movie and it's great, obviously. I hadn't really ever thought of it as being like a super popular movie, but when people started finding my books, a lot of them were like, "Oh my God, this is just like Waterworld," and I was like, "Do people like Waterworld? Is that like a cool thing?" Apparently, people do. So,
I
yeah,
think the concept of it is better than the movie itself.
yeah,
Because
for sure.
yeah. Dialogue terrible. Kevin Costner, he's classic, but the poor man got the worst writing for the longest time.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
But
yeah,
that,
it's definitely a cool concept. The idea
Yeah.
of this sort of like this water world. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, especially back in what was it, the late 80s, early 90s, when everything was like the sci-fi theme was really building up into like the action theme and whatnot.
Mhm.
And Michael Crichton, all of his books were being made into movies.
Mhm.
Do you ever
Yeah.
you've read Michael Crichton?
I actually, God, have I? Maybe a long, long time ago.
Jurassic
but not,
Park,
not-
Timeline.
I mean, yeah, I definitely know of the books. I don't know if I've actually read Jurassic Park or if I've just seen the movie so many times that I think I've read Jurassic Park.
There's a lot of science, a lot more science that goes into it than the movie does. But
Yeah.
So it's very, very fascinating. But yeah, no, the thing I love about Michael Crichton is he always emphasizes the consequences of playing God, the God complex.
Right.
And it's not just in Jurassic Park, but in each and every one of his stories, it's the argument of could versus should. Someone playing with powers that they think they have control over, but they really end up, their demise is met through the very power that they had sought to control.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that is definitely a big theme in my series. Not necessarily the main character, but sort of the world that she's in has kind of come about as a result of humans, sort of playing God. And the book I'm working on right now, which is actually for my traditional publishing debut, is very much along those lines of like the main character is playing with stuff that she doesn't really understand and gets kind of carried away with it, and hijinks and hilarity ensue. I can't really tell you any more than that, unfortunately, because the book hasn't been announced yet, but yeah, it's very much on that kind of theme.
Okay, well, what can you tell us about the books that you have written? Like,
yes, sure.
Go into detail about like the characters or the central plots.
Sure. So the dystopian series I kind of mentioned, there's currently, I think there's 8 books in that series, and it will be 9 when I sort of complete it by the end of next year. And that is, so it's, this dystopian water world. There's 2 main characters who are sort of fighting their way through it. The main character herself is this girl, Bird Housley, who is sort of a train wreck. She's very much based on me. She doesn't have her shit together really at all. She's struggling with some substance abuse. Right, exactly.
Who has their shit together?
I mean, it's funny that you say that because I mean, I really wanted to write a character that sort of felt like you could read her. So here's what it kind of came about as. It's like when I thought about Hunger Games, you know, I mentioned that like that was a big thing that I remembered when I first started writing. The thing that really bothered me about that book was like how selfless and sort of good at stuff Katniss was. And I was like, I really want to write a book where the heroine is just like kind of a selfish asshole and really not good at things, just kind of fucks everything up all the time. So that's sort of the main character of my series. She's struggling. She is struggling. I think she's a pretty, she's like borderline unlikable, but she's struggling enough that you sort of feel for her. Mm-hmm. So she's struggling with some substance abuse issues that are sort of the underlying cause of those issues is mental health stuff that she doesn't really know is going on with her. And the whole series is, yes, she's fighting her way through this dystopian water world, but she's also figuring out, she's basically, you know, getting her mental health together and becoming sober and realizing, you know, how to work with her brain and channel her sort of weirdly wired brain into something that's really powerful. So that's like that series. And then I have a second series out, which is a little bit more sort of based on my video content that I make. And it's a series of short stories where I really am just sort of like playing around with a lot of just different stuff. So the books that you were reading, like the Have Yourself a Merry Little Apocalypse and Tale of Mischief and Fuckery, Red, White, Little Blue Men from Mars. It's like every short story is a different type of genre. So there's like fae romance, there's alien romance, there's billionaire romance, there's motorcycle romance, there's vampire romance, and everyone is sort of some of them are pretty bonkers, some of them are very out there. I mean, I think so. Not everyone agrees. Some of the books are not very highly rated because I think people read them and they're like, what is this? They're definitely a little out there, some of them, but again, like it's just like a fun way to sort of play with tropes. That's like a lot of what my video content is about, right? It's like poking fun at these tropes, poking fun at romance and how sort of silly it is. So yeah, it's like an opportunity to sort of have fun with it.
Yeah, how I especially love the videos. I think you got a few of them. How women write how men smell.
Yes. Yeah.
He smelled like cedar and cinnamon.
Yep. That is a big one for sure.
The salt upon the sea, or the color of their eyes, or God, it's hilarious. I cannot help but grin my ass off every single time I see one of those.
Oh yay, that's nice. Yeah. I like it that people enjoy the videos because it's nice to hear that I can like make people laugh, because I get comments sometimes from people who will message me and they're like, you know, I had such a horrible day and then I watched your video and it really made me smile, and I'm like, that's great. Like that actually makes me feel like I'm doing something useful in the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a really nice feeling.
Yeah, it is. I absolutely, one of my things is I love making people laugh. I love making them cringe with puns. A bunch of my content, I said this earlier, is making people cringe with puns. I love, even at work, I'm that awkward person that will make puns and they'll just like turn away and groan, or they'll laugh. It depends on people's sense of humor. Some people genuinely enjoy puns. Some people really like puns, especially if you set it up in like a little, in a set of a joke, like a dad joke, but or you just automatically rolls off the tongue because you're in the middle of a conversation, or it could be in a borderline serious conversation, and they just say that one word and you're like, oh, you mean this?
Yeah. Yep. This? Big fan of that. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm also a big fan of things like That's What She Said.
Yes.
So stupid, but like I will throw in a That's What She Said at just times where my boyfriend will be like, that doesn't even make sense, and I'm like, it does to me. I got it. Good time.
I love that. Oh God. So back to writing. So God, what do you plan for your future writings for right now? Like not to like give away any stories, but what other concepts or other dystopian subjects have you thought to explore for your characters, or just for future storylines?
Yeah. Well, so like I said, I unfortunately can't tell you much about the book that I'm working on right now, but it's a blend of dystopian and fantasy. It's set in like a near future world. I'm very into like near future stuff where the world is similar enough to ours that you are kind of like, huh, this feels like it could really happen.
Like Planet of
And
the Apes.
right, sure.
Yeah.
And like stuff I worked in tech for a little while. I was a software engineer for a little while, so I very much like to sort of poke at the tech industry and the concept of billionaires and particularly tech billionaires. Like
Mhm.
for a long time I struggled to find like a bad guy for my series because I think that the concept of a bad guy sort of flattens a character, right? Like to me, there's no such thing as a bad guy. There's only people who make poor decisions or act in their own self-interest or are not acting in a way that other people expect them to. But when you need a bad guy, just a like stereotypical, a
True villain.
billionaire, yeah, a billionaire is a great villain. So all of my all of my villains has so far have basically been billionaires, and I think they probably will continue to be. That's like a theme that I'm definitely like writing on. I will. I don't know. I would love to keep writing dystopian. I really enjoy it just because I think it's a great way to yeah sort of comment on the world, and satire goes
Mhm.
really like nicely hand in hand with dystopian, I think. Unfortunately, it's not like a super popular genre, probably because the world is like an actual garbage fire right now. People don't necessarily want to read about it.
Yeah,
So I'm kind
we
of
are
moving.
we are
Yeah,
so
sorry.
close to like Viva Vendetta at this
Right.
point. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm sort of moving a little bit more into fantasy, and thinking a little bit about maybe some just sort of. I do love. I mean, obviously, I make funny videos. I love funny. I love banter. I love to just fill my books with silly characters and snarky banter. So I might be moving a little bit towards like a lighter kind of like fun fantasy feel.
Okay.
I think that would be good. I also am interested. So far everything I've written has been like young adult or new adult. So
Mhm.
I actually have two versions of my dystopian series out. There's a young adult version and there's a new adult version. The new adult version has the spicy scenes in it. The young adult version, the characters are a little bit younger. They're like,
Mhm.
they're late teens, and there's no spice in that version. All of those scenes
Good.
are removed. So everything I've written has been around that, like characters are between 17 and like 27. I
Mhm.
think it would be pretty interesting to write some like fantasy where the characters are older. Like I have this idea for a book where it's like, a woman in her mid 30s and maybe like her mom and her aunt who are in their like 60s to 80s go
Mhm.
on a fantasy adventure together. I think that'd be pretty cool and fun.
I would
Um,
love that.
yeah, so I don't know. I should probably write something super marketable at some point, but I don't know if I ever will because all I want to do is just write like bonkers off the wall stuff. So
And
we'll
I
see.
would say continue with that. You definitely have an audience for that.
Yeah,
I like
there
I'm
must be.
part of it already. I'm part of it
Oh, great.
already. I love that.
Hooray.
What's one of your favorite not just one of your favorite tropes in general, but one of your favorite writing tropes to write? Like
Ooh,
yeah.
I personally love a good one bed scene, and I love to write a one bed scene. Just because, I mean, I think it it can be really funny
Mhm.
if you make it silly and you go, oh ha ha ha, there's only one bed, isn't this so silly? But there's also, if you come at it from a real earnest side, it's a
Mhm.
very like tender and beautiful way to bring two people together,
Mhm.
particularly if they are like young adults or new adults or kind of falling in love for the first time or don't really know what they're doing. So yeah, I think there's just like so much in the one bed that is really lovely to kind of unpack and play with. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to write. I do also really love writing a good like someone tending someone's wounds. That's always a good time.
Oh yeah. Like stop being
Yeah.
such a baby. It's just a little this is just a scratch, okay?
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That kind of I love banter, especially during those intimate scenes when the characters just can't help but be either sincere and then they just throw in a little bit of snark and sarcasm.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, what is your favorite kind of character trope? Like your
Ooh.
favorite kind of characters, not just to write, but even to read about. Like
I would
characters you
say I'm
immediately connect with.
I would say I'm probably pretty into like anti-heroes. The people that are like Yeah, I mean, God, I have to actually look up what the actual definition of that is because I say it and then I don't actually remember
I think the
exactly.
anti-hero, because I've had this debate multiple times as to whether or not a famous borderline villain is whether or not he's a villain or an anti-hero or anti-villain.
Uh-huh.
So the
Yeah.
anti-hero, I think he does it's either the wrong things for the right reasons or the right things for the wrong reasons.
Ooh, interesting. That's a good way to
Yeah.
look at it. I always,
Yeah.
so I think in my mind, an anti-hero is someone who, like, is the main character, is going on the quest or whatever, but they basically just lack heroic qualities. So, like, they're not brave, they're not smart, they're not good at stuff, they're selfish, they're petty, like, and you
Dead.
sort of, you kind of hate them a little bit, but also you just can't, you're like, what is this person, what's going to happen to this person? That I love that. I really, I don't love. It sounds really terrible, but I don't love like nice, good characters. I want all my characters, all of my characters. I was actually reading my manuscript earlier the other day. I was like, wow, all these characters are kind of assholes. And I think that's sort of just like how I write them. I don't know. I don't know if I'm capable of writing a nice character.
No, I like those too. I immediately my favorite character in any series, in any whether it be book, movie, TV series, is the snarky, sarcastic side character. I think the official term for that is because they always get screwed over at some point. The MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those characters. They're usually like set to the side. They're the best friend character, but they have the best dialogue. They have the best snarky best friend attitude. They're always there for like either the hero or the hero's love interest. They're always that wingman, but so often they get sidelined, you know, or they even get killed off. And it's that's the character that I immediately latch onto. Not necessarily because I personally resonate with them, but because they're just they're not just an entertainment. They're just too likable. You know?
Yeah. It's like the kind of character where like they come on the page and you're like, ooh, yay, this person's back. Hooray.
I like that.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. So, who's a character in you say that you add a little bit of yourself into the stories that you write, but who was a character in a dystopian series that you read or even in a movie that you saw or a story in general that you personally resonated with?
That is a good question. So, yeah, it's funny. I never really resonated all that well with like Katniss Everdeen or even, oh God, what's her name? Triss in Divergent. I never really resonated with them. I think I'm more about those books and movies. I prefer just like the world and the action, and all the cool stuff that happens in there. Man, characters. There is a book called this is going to sound really weird. There's a book called The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is sort of, I don't know if you'd really call it dystopian. It's definitely sci-fi. So it's a character basically is dropped into an alien planet, and it's a male character. And he is dropped into this planet where he's basically there to act on behalf of like a UN, and get this planet to join their like interplanetary, coalition or whatever. And all of the aliens are these like non-binary sort of genderless aliens, and it's this character's kind of going through the world. He gets tangled up in a lot of like political intrigue. He's basically discovering the world as it would be, like how it is different from ours societally and culturally because they have no gender, and how that like affects how their society has progressed and where they're at. And I guess, I don't know, I think I maybe resonate with the idea of just being a person in a world that you don't totally understand. I think like that's maybe a kind of a universal feeling that a lot of like people have, right? Where you're not necessarily on an alien planet, but sometimes you're walking around and you're like, God, I just really feel like an alien on this planet, the one that I am from. So yeah, I think, and I mean, that's just a great book in general. Another one that I read somewhat recently was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. just it is technically YA dystopian, but it's not really YA dystopian in the same way that like Hunger Games is. But basically, there's like kids that are being raised in a boarding house in England,
Mhm.
and it's all very like gray. It's very atmospheric. The whole novel is like you really get this feeling of like this English countryside house in the fog and in the forest, and it's like green and lush and but also kind of dismal. And then in the background, there's this sort of dystopian government that's like very, you don't really know what they're about, and so sort of operating in the shadows. Um,
Mhm.
and the main character of that, the way Ishiguro writes these kids, and the way that they grow up in this world is so, like, it spoke so deeply to my personal childhood. I actually grew up in England. So maybe that was part of it. But he just captures like what it's like to be a child so well in that book that you really feel like, oh yeah, that was me.
Mhm.
That was me as a child. There's also a major plot twist at the end that I don't want to give away. That makes the book a lot more dystopian when you kind of realize what is actually going on behind the scenes. But yeah, that's another great one where I really definitely
Mhm.
resonated with the main character. Like as a child, felt like that really captured my child.
Love that. So,
Yeah, good stuff. Great,
what is a
great book.
book that started your like you what how old were you when you first started like not just writing books, but like writing in general? When did your personal love for writing start?
That's funny. So I actually started writing when I was very young, and then I went away from it for a very long time. So I think probably when I was when I was super young, I would like
Mhm.
play with Legos and Barbies and stuff, and I would tell these like extremely complex, multiple day, week long sagas with my Legos and Barbie dolls, constructing these stories. And I think that was probably the first, like storytelling that I ever really did. Um, I have a story from when I was in like probably maybe second or first grade that I
Mhm.
wrote about like a lobster getting caught by a fishing net, I think. So
Okay.
that was probably the first time that I started writing, and then all through elementary school, I would write. I would write a lot of poetry. I wrote like stories and things like that. Through high school, a lot of really really bad angsty poetry in high school. I mean, really really
We all
that
go
like
through that phase.
yeah, exactly. And then actually, so I played a lot of music as a kid. I was lucky enough to be able to play music, and ended up like out of high school and towards the end of high school, got more into music and writing music, and so that's where a lot of my like writing energy was into writing song lyrics and also composing music and writing songs. And I did that for a really long time, probably almost 10 years, out of high school, and like led a band and all that kind of stuff. So that's it's funny when I say I went away from writing, I actually didn't when I think about it, because I was writing music,
Well, you went
always
away
kind of
from
always
story
writing
writing.
something,
You
I
or
guess.
that
Yeah.
Yeah, you went away from story writing. That sounds like what happened was you didn't just you didn't take a step back from you took a step back from story writing, but all the while you were just experimenting with different styles of writing.
Yeah. And I actually
Correct.
think I
Yeah.
think about it. I think about it now when I'm writing, when I'm writing stories, all of the rhythm and rhyming and sort of just playing with language in that capacity that comes from writing music and writing lyrics and writing poetry, and being able to distill what you're trying to say down into like 3 minutes of a song or a few stanzas of poetry or whatever is all
Mhm.
super useful when you then come to write a novel, because you can construct sentences that have a really nice kind of like cadence to them.
Yeah.
I try to keep the actual rhythm of my sentences in mind a lot while I'm writing. I try to keep things like it helps with things like alliteration and rhyme and all that kind of stuff that you can kind of throw into just your prose writing that makes it so much richer, and I mean, I think personally, and just more fun to read.
Do any of your characters write poetry in your stories, or do you do a Tolkien thing where you add like riddles or story or poems into like the character storylines and whatnot? Like
I
they need
haven't
to.
I Yeah, I haven't actually done that yet, and it's something I've been thinking about recently that I really would like to do. What I have done is I've used a couple of my favorite poems in books. These are like poems that are way in the public domain, for 100 years or whatever. And I'll put those in the books because sometimes I think that like a great poet can say a thing so much better than I can. But yeah, that is something I would love to start kind of weaving some more kind of poetry and stuff like that. I did have a character write a limerick once that was pretty good. That's probably the only thing that I've put in so far.
How did it go?
Oh boy, I don't even know if I can say it. It's pretty dirty. What is it?
This is a podcast about smut, so we drop the F-bomb in here all the time.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to think. So, I mean, it actually does need a little bit of context of the world of the story. The city that they live in is called Connaught. So, okay, it goes, there once was a girl from Connaught who was unbelievably hot. Her tits made me crazy. Her ass did amaze me. I can't wait till she shows me her twat. Oh man, I'm pretty proud of that one, actually. That's pretty good. Yeah. If anyone wants to read that, it's in a book called Savage. You can find that one. They can find that one in there.
I love that. Okay, now getting to the romance part. How do you like writing romance? How do you like to set up the romantic subplots in the throughout the main plot of your story?
How do you mean exactly? I mean, I guess I don't know if I do necessarily. I think that the romance sort of builds in the same way that the rest of the story does, right? There's sort of like, I mean, if you're writing a story, there's kind of a 3-act structure, and there's going to be the catalyst that kicks everything off, and then there's going to be some rising action, and then there's going to be a climax, and then there's going to be some falling action. And I think like the romance kind of follows the same sort of path or trajectory. Also, my books, I've been told by a lot of people, are not like strictly speaking romance, because I don't really always follow the like happily ever after or whatever, or even happily for now formula.
It doesn't have to, though. It doesn't have to. I guess, you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Not every relationship ends in happily ever after. Sometimes they end in disaster, or
most of my characters' relationships do not. Yeah, well, in the short stories, that's not true. In the short stories, they do, because, I mean, it's a short thing, and it's fun, and it's whatever. So those are mostly going to be, like, a happily for now, at least, or happily ever after. In the dystopian series, it's, like, 9 books of tortured feelings. Eventually, maybe someone will be happy somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I just, I think, for me, I like a good slow burn. I like characters to be just in love with each other, but they're too afraid to say it, but then they kind of come together, and then, oh no, we can't, and like all that. I think that's really great. So that's a lot, I guess, of what I kind of do.
I love that. And everyone loves a good slow burn, but there's a difference between a slow burn and is the oven even on?
Yeah. Yes.
So, like, yeah. It's either like, is this even a level of heat, or is it even cooking? Is this a wash pot situation?
Yeah.
Or it's taking too damn long. Are you actually developing a relationship here, or is it all about the sexual tension?
Yes.
So
yeah, totally. Yeah. That's a good point, right? Because like there can definitely be a lot of sexual tension between characters when not actually any real substance is happening underneath. So the book that I'm writing currently, because my dystopian series is like a very slow burn, to the point where it takes them like 3 books basically to get together. In this book, I wanted to have, I like having a slow burn, but then I also have, so there's sort of 2 love interests. One that you can have kind of a faster burn with, and there's a lot of sexual tension, and it's like fun and whatever. But then like the real person she's going to end up with is sort of humming along in the background, and their interactions are a lot more sort of like relationship building and do we like each other? I don't know, like that kind of stuff. It's fun to be able to have both in a book.
Okay, so that sounds like a love triangle. But how do you feel about love triangle romantic subplots? Like, if they're,
well, it's funny because I think the idea of a love triangle is usually not correct, right? Because so a love triangle, it's like 2 people are in love with the same person. Is that right?
Yeah.
I guess technically what I am doing in this book is a love triangle, but there's no conflict between the 2 people that are after the same person. But technically a love triangle would be like person A loves person B, but person B loves person C, and person C loves person A. That would be a real love triangle, which that I think would be cool. Have I ever done that? I don't think I've ever done that. Maybe I should do that at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or you can Midsummer Night's Dream it, where one of them,
Ooh,
yeah. Um, that's not even that's a love quadruple,
yeah.
but
Shakespeare being
uh,
being Shakespeare.
oh no, but like he almost had it because there was two guys in love with the same girl, and then there was both guys then in love with this other same girl, and then he adjusted by just making because both girls were in love with both were with either guy, so all
Mm-hmm.
he had to do was just he only had to change one person's feelings, and that was it. Instead, he
Mm-hmm.
just takes them on this weird rom com
Mm-hmm.
loop. And then, oh god, though, I just freaking love that exchange between the women where they suddenly, like, where Hermia's like, "You stole my man? What
Mm-hmm.
the? We were friends. Why?" And she's like, "What are you doing? What are you talking about? You're playing a joke on me. This is all just a big joke, right?" And she's like, "No." And it's all because Puck didn't pick the wrong guy to put the juice in the eye.
It's the most frustrating. Like God, that stuff I get so frustrated by. Like the
Yeah.
just you just did the one tiny thing wrong, and then all of the stuff. Like
You had one
yeah,
job, Puck. You
right.
had one job.
Yeah.
He pucked up.
Yeah.
Gotta get one in. Oh, but like, back to like love triangles. Yeah, the way that they're typically set up is always it's always that misconstruction of two people in love with one person, when in fact you're right,
Mm-hmm.
it would be person A in love with person B in love with person C in love with person A.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Mm-hmm.
never gotten that because
I feel like they're
otherwise it's not a love
thinking.
triangle, it's a love arrowhead.
Right, or like a love V or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We just need
yeah,
to rebrand the love triangle.
yeah.
Person A
But
in
then
love
what
with
it
person B. I swear to God, there's a. I'm trying to think of a thing where it is. It's not going to come to me, but
yeah. I'm sure there's a polyamorous relationship love triangle, true love triangle romance out there.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's exactly what it have to be. So, anyways, um, Liz, thank you for joining with me today. I really do appreciate you coming on. Where can people find your books? Like, where can they purchase your books?
Yes. Okay. So you can find the ebooks and paperbacks for the spicy version of my dystopian series on Amazon. You can also find the paperbacks everywhere. The ebooks are only available on Amazon because they're in KU, Kindle Unlimited. But you can find the paperbacks everywhere. You can find the young adult version on my website, which is lizshipton.com.
Mhm.
And then the short story series you can find in Kindle Unlimited. And
Love it.
that's where everything is currently.
Awesome. And where can people find you on your social medias?
Shipton everywhere. I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. I'm on Threads a bit and Facebook as well. I just got into YouTube actually, so I'm posting shorts on YouTube now as well, which is
Yay!
exciting. So yeah, I'm
Go
all
subscribe to
over
her
the place.
channel.
Yeah. Oh, please do. That'd be great.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining with me today. Liz, again, thank you for coming on. Fellow readers,
Thank
I
you.
hope you're... Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to say.
Yes, thank you. Fellow readers, thank you for joining us today. I hope your day is as good as the book you are currently reading. Have a wonderful day, everyone.